Hello fellow Affinity designers. In this tutorial I'm going to tackle 3 questions that came from some of you, and it's just a way of helping me set the record straight, clarify some things. First up, we're going to look at the fuzzy brush tutorial. I made a vector brush, but if you wanted to do just a pixel brush, here are the settings for making that happen. In your pixel persona, create a new round brush and then apply these settings that I have typed up here on the screen. This is a great base point, and I've put a hyphen between the values that you can play around with, and I'll even include some variations. But basically, just by setting the general tab sliders and the dynamics tab sliders to reflect what I have here on the screen, you will be able to create your own fuzzy brush. Once you've got that up and running, I encourage you to use the duplicate button at the bottom of the brush palette there, and then create variations to see what will best fit your project. In this example, once I have my basic brush set up, I duplicate it and I change the shape to make a softer brush, and then I change the slider on the rotation jitter in the dynamics tab to make a vertical striped, almost like caterpillar. From the Mask Like a Genius video, one of the viewers was interested in cell shading. So here is an example of base color with a shadow color and a highlight, just versions of that base color. But the problem is, if you change the base color, you have to go ahead and change everything. So the better way to do it is to mask your shapes and use a black and a white, set them to multiply and screen or overlay. That way they'll change along with the base color if you decide to adjust that. Catamaran asked if I would do a USB brush tutorial after watching my object brush inspiration video. So as a quick overview of that process, I'll just kind of narrate the most important things to know, the techniques I'm using. I'm using the clipping mask function, which is to select an object that you want to serve as a highlight or a shadow and dragging it down and to the right of the layer object that you want the shadow or highlight to be on. And in this case, I created some highlights. I created a rim light. The way I accomplished that rim light is created a box with rounded corners, set it to light color, and then I really like using the transparency tool. It looks like the wine glass. It instantly creates opacity, and it's got so many uses. Here I'm adding highlight and shadow to create a sense of flat and round on the kind of the transition segment of that cable end. And then I'm going to add in highlights on the section below, and then copy that whole thing, stretch it out, and make the long cable. And I'm just adjusting the highlights and shadows as well. Also, another trick I use is to add noise. So you'll see in the color palette that the noise slider is up because I've clicked on the little round color swatch that can swap between opacity or noise. Here I am just creating those little channels inside the cable, and if I wanted to, I could actually erase those out, but I'm gonna just let them be dark shadows instead. And again, you can get way more intense. Here I'm gonna export this PNG, and I want to have a transparent background, so I go to Document Setup, turn on the transparent background, and then go to my export persona and export that. I'm going to cut the end to make sure it's flat. Then in my brushes palette, I'm going to create a new textured image brush. That'll preserve whatever colors I used in the original artwork. And there it is. I'm going to drag it out here, just draw. And the end is weird, and there's some reasons why that is the case. I'll show you in a second. First of all, though, notice that the texture is fine here, but if I keep on going, it's set at stretch, and those will begin to stretch out the longer my stroke is. So what I want to do is make this a repeating brush, and I'm going to drag the head and tail offset in to make sure it's just repeating one section with that brush. And now I can go as long as I want, and it will not be a problem. But you'll note again, the end is kind of weird, and if we look at the wireframe of this object, we'll notice that there's just tons of extra points that are completely unnecessary. So I'm just going to select a bunch of those and delete them, and that way we have a nice straight end. Also in the brush, the stroke menu, I would always use the, not the rounded cap, because you get this weird jaggedy end, and don't do that other one, do the middle one, the butt cap. and then you always have a nice straight line on the end. That's it for this video. I hope that cleared some things up for you. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. If you learned something, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Catch you next time.